Welcome to A North Point Counseling Perspective, the podcast that explores the world of mental health, personal growth, and insights that promote healthy living. I'm your host, counselor and author John Sternfels. Each podcast is designed to bring you insightful topics and practical advice to help you better understand yourself and enhance your relationships. Whether you're seeking individual, marital, or parental challenges, we've got you covered. So grab your headphones, settle in, and let's explore another episode in the North Point Counseling Perspective. In this week's episode, I have the great honor of introducing someone whose story is both deeply moving and profoundly inspiring. Today, we're celebrating the launch of a book that not only sheds light on the shadows of human experience, but also illuminates the path to healing and hope. I'm thrilled to introduce my co-author, Melissa Roberts, whose courage and resilience are the heart and soul of Behind the Smile. Melissa's journey is one of overcoming extraordinary adversity, abuse, trauma, and sexual betrayal. Her story is not just a testament to her strength, but also a beacon of hope for anyone who has faced their own trials. In Behind the Smile, Melissa offers an intimate look into her personal struggles and triumphs. This book is more than just a narrative, it's a powerful exploration of recovery and self-discovery. Through her words, Melissa extends an invitation to all of us to confront our own pain, find strength within ourselves, and heal. Melissa's bravery in sharing her story speaks volumes about her dedication to helping others. Her journey is a reminder that behind every smile, there can be a story of struggle and survival. Yet, it also shows us that it is possible to transform pain into empowerment with compassion, support, and perseverance. Please join me in welcoming Melissa Roberts, a voice of resilience and a symbol of hope. Melissa, thank you for your unwavering strength and for sharing your story. I am sure the listeners are all eager to delve into Behind the Smile and learn from your incredible journey. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you, John, for having me. I am so excited to be able to share the story of writing this book and the story it came from. I feel like a lot of the listeners here will be able to identify and excited that it may make a difference in their life.
Yeah, I think so too. And so perhaps, Melissa, as we begin today, I thought it might be helpful if you could share a bit about how we first met.
Well, I had seen a lot of counselors and therapists. I was going through a journey with my husband at that time. He was dealing with sex addiction, and we hit bottom. And my close friend, knew of you and your therapy and what you were doing, and she referred me to you. And after some prayer, we thought, this is the last straw, and we decided to try it out, even though we had to journey 90 miles to get to your office, but we trusted God that this was our last straw to work with our marriage and the trauma that it was producing.
At what point in your marriage, Melissa, did this occur?
Well, at this point, we had been married about 32 years, and he was very passive, and I did not realize at the time that he was into pornography. After 34 years of marriage, it really hit ahead. And this book talks about how I reacted to it, the journey of healing through my childhood trauma, and also the trauma that was brought on by the marriage issues that we had.
Melissa, as you know, family dynamics play such an important role. Can you share more about your family dynamics growing up?
My dad was an alcoholic. He came from a family that was dysfunctional. My mom came from a family that was dysfunctional. And there was chaos from day one. Very, very abusive. My mom was passive, pretty much did everything to try to make dad happy, but nothing made him happy. I was much a people pleaser, so I would try to just keep peace at all costs, and it got me into trouble. It added stress to my life. I had issues that he did not like, and the book talks about this, some of those issues that he dealt with in very inappropriate ways. I had 3 siblings that were living with us at that time. I also had 2 half-siblings that I barely knew, and also experienced the same abuse as I had. So it was extremely dysfunctional, scary. A lot of messages were brought on to me like, I am no good, I'm ugly, I'm just never going to amount to anything in life. These voices continued until 60 years later, seeing you. Yeah.
I'm wondering if you felt that you were the only one and there was something defective about you that you start to incorporate into your belief system that it was you that was the problem.
Oh, yeah. That was the message that was communicated all through my childhood. I was a problem. I was the one that caused it. That message was clear, carried on through my adulthood and into my marriage. Blame myself for everything because for me, it was easier to blame myself. I didn't see the problem in other people. And that was taught to me as a child.
Melissa, as we started working together, you had mentioned that you were spending over 20 plus years documenting your story. And I'm kind of curious, what led you to want to journal about it? Most people would want to say, I don't want to go back and think about it. And here you're recording, you're documenting, you're keeping a diary.
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I grew up in a very angry home, very vocal. And therefore, I thought anger was wrong. And it got to a point where I stuffed the anger so much that I had an episode in our marriage where I exploded. And it scared me because I thought I was just like my dad. So we found this counselor, and I call him my first kick butt counselor because he really addressed the issues I needed to deal with. And so I told him my story, and he challenged me to start writing it down, that would be part of my therapy. So as I wrote it down, I shared it with some other people, and they said, one day you should make this into a book. I didn't know how to end the story because my marriage at that time was starting to be a little bit iffy. I knew there was issues, but I always blamed myself. So that story stayed on the shelf for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And it came out about 3 years ago.
Right.
When we talked about doing a book together.
Right. And so as you recall, what were some of the biggest challenges in writing the book?
Well, one of the biggest challenge I found was putting feelings to facts. I was great at putting facts, but as a child, I was taught not to feel, not to have feelings. If I showed any feelings, I was abused. I was hit. I was beat. I was great at putting the facts down. But I had to put the feelings to it. Also, rereading it as we tried to decipher what we wanted in it and what we didn't want. It was hard to relive each event, but it got easier each time that I had to reread it.
So given that transparency, that depth regarding your personal experiences, what do you think the readers will experience in reading the book?
I think some of them who have gone through the trauma, they might experience some triggers, but as they read, they will be able to identify with some of the events that has happened in my life. It will give them some hope of healing, that they can get through this. There was a point where I felt hopeless, that this was life, the rest of my life, and it's not going to get any better. And I just might as well live with it. Well, events turned out that I didn't have to do that. God showed me there was a chance of healing. So hopefully the readers will be able to see they can heal. They can get help with the trauma that they have experienced or experience at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And so even today, I'm wondering how writing the book has continued to impact your life.
When you go through the muck of living your story, you don't see what it's going to look like at the end. And writing this book has shown me that God was in it all the way. He protected me times I didn't realize I was being protected. He was writing my story. And I learned, too, that there is a lot of Melissas out there, a lot of people experiencing trauma or have experienced trauma. So as I share my story with other people, I'm hearing that, yeah, there is a lot of Melissas out there.
Yeah, definitely not alone.
Mm-mm.
And as you recall, these moments, we'll call them breakthroughs during your healing journey, you had to decide what to put in the book, what you found essential to include. Can you share a little bit more about what you chose to share and why?
Oh, yeah. The breakthroughs, one of the biggest breakthroughs was the EMDR. And John, you could kind of explain what that means. But for me, because of the voices that was spoken into my life as a child, that I was no good, I was ugly, I could never amount to anything, I'm in a hopeless situation. Those were the voices I was always hearing in my head, no matter what I went through in life. EMDR helped retrain those voices, face them for what truth is. I am a wonderful creation. I can face a situation with God's strength. It gave me new voices in my head to help me be more at peace with my life. The other one that I thought was very essential to include is learning who was safe people to share with. And this is referred to in the book as blue, red, and purple people. And the readers will have to read the book to figure out what these people mean. But I learned who I was able to share with, the safe people that would be on my team to help me through this journey. I needed support in this, and I found the people to do that through that tool.
Yeah, I would imagine sharing personal information with people you have not evaluated to be safe could be very harmful and scary. And I think that's what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. It is.
In real basic terms, EMDR, also known as eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, is a psychotherapy approach used to help individuals process and heal from traumatic experiences. The goal is to reduce the emotional impact of these memories and reframe how they are stored in the brain, which then leads to healthier cognitive and emotional responses. I'm going to turn the tables around just a little bit here, Melissa. Let's say that you're listening to the podcast today and actually have never sought help from being abused and consequently having to live a secret life. As a listener, what would inspire you to start working on your healing?
I would say that the writer of the book never gave up, seeing how God provided in her life, no matter what, and that healing began when she started having a voice. It's so easy to be silent and stay in that silent mode, but having that voice opened the doors to the steps of healing.
Mm-hmm. So regarding some specific resources or support systems that you would recommend to listeners, what might you recommend that would help inspire their healing?
First of all, if you're going through a partner betrayal, especially with dealing with pornography, I would highly suggest finding a therapist who specializes in that type of addiction. I didn't realize at the time there was such a therapist, but there are lots of them out there that specialize in sexual addiction. Also, the partner trauma, that was so essential for my healing. Being a part of a support group was very soothing for me. When you go through this, you feel like you're so alone, and being a part of a support group, I was able to hear other women's story, and their stories were not so much different than mine. And we were encouragement to each other to keep on going on our healing journey.
Mm-hmm. That leads me to the word vulnerability. Being in group, being known, being heard is one risk factor, but the role of vulnerability in actually writing this book.
That's a good question. And it was difficult because I needed to balance letting the reader know the struggles I went through as a child and as an adult, but yet not put too much to turn off the reader. That's where my co-writer was very helpful in discerning what we could put in and what we couldn't. Prayer was a big part of that process. One of the things I've done from the get-go, even the 20 years ago when I was thinking about putting this in the book, is changing the names of the family members, places, and things like that. I wanted to protect them. There are some people in the story that may not like me sharing this story, and I wanted to protect them. And that was essential. So that was a good question.
Protecting the privacy of those, yet being honest with your own story was vital.
Exactly.
Writing this type of book, addressing abuse, trauma, betrayal, I wonder how that changed your perspective on all your life experiences.
Well, like I mentioned before, I saw God's hand of protection and provision throughout my story. It's something to draw from when I go through future struggles, that God was always there and He's always going to be there. Also, the other thing, He used my difficult times as a ministry tool to others. One of the ministries I have is I'm a licensed pastoral counselor that I counsel women at my church, my home church. And there's a lot of women who come with difficult marriages or childhood abuse that they come to me, and my story helps them to continue on fighting the struggles that they are and addressing them. It's good to see God use that. I also was able to have a voice for children who in the court system as they were in the network, in the courtroom. And that was so freeing for me to have a voice for them when I wasn't able to have a voice as a child.
Yeah, you look back at the experiences that you had, the abuse, the trauma, betrayal, not having a voice, self-esteem severely severed, and how God has used that. And here you are today talking about it and being an instrument of light to others who perhaps are experiencing the same thing.
Yeah, God is good in that, how He can turn things around.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, lastly, Melissa, I wonder if there's particular myths or any misconceptions about abuse, trauma, and betrayal that maybe you want the listeners to take away with, challenge any myths or misconceptions.
First, one of the things I was told by a couple of people as I was sharing my struggle of having a marriage partner that was into pornography and had a sex addiction. One of the advice they would give me would be to be more sexually active with that partner. I took that on at first and felt guilty, but I learned later on that no matter how sexually intimate I was with my partner, it wasn't going to fix the problem.
Right.
He needed much more. Another myth was, I was told by another counselor that pornography is okay if both of partners agree to it. That you can view pornography as long as your partner would give you permission, and that's not okay. That pornography is not a good thing to view. And then lastly, I had a person who was in ministry when I shared with her that my husband was into pornography. She smiled and said, that's the easiest addiction to overcome. And that is totally untrue. It is probably the hardest addiction to overcome because people are tempted everywhere you look, in advertisement and everywhere. You can't get away from it. So that's a very difficult journey to overcome.
And so for the women or men that are out there and they're struggling with a secret life, whether they're in fact struggling with addiction, love addiction, porn use, or struggles in marriage, the advice is to seek help and don't live in silence. Don't keep your voice silent. Get help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much. Yeah, yes.
Well, I know on behalf of Melissa and myself, we encourage you to pick up the book Behind the Smile, read it, and we would encourage you to give us some feedback. Melissa, thank you so much for doing the podcast today with me.
Well, thank you for having me. And again, I just hope this book helps some person that is just feeling hopeless. There is hope.
Thank you, Melissa. Well, there you have it. Thank you so much for joining us today for another North Point Counseling Perspective. And a special thanks to Melissa Roberts for sharing her incredible journey through Behind the Smile. I want to tell you, folks, Melissa's story is a powerful reminder of the strength within all of us and the importance of hope and healing. If you found this episode inspiring, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing it with others who might benefit from Melissa's personal story. And if you'd like to order a copy of Behind the Smile, you can go to Amazon or any other major book retailer. Until next time, stay inspired, stay resilient, believe in yourself, and let your inner light shine brightly.